Welcome into a reaction podcast, the first reaction podcast for the House of Halas podcast. We got Nas, we got Frank, we got Jack talking a little Bears news. Hope you both had a wonderful Thanksgiving with your family after that just disgusting, humiliating Bears loss. Bears lose 20-23. Bears fall to 4-8, but that's not important. What is important, fellas? Matt Eberflus can go fucking play with his bees. He can get a new beard. He can get a handlebar mustache. We don't care. He can do whatever the fuck he wants because he is no longer the head coach of the Chicago Bears. I just want raw, instant reactions. I want to start with Nas because Nas, this is your first time on the House of Halas podcast, and we got to get your thoughts here.
Wow. Thanks for welcoming me. I'm glad to be part of the team. And wow, all I was thinking was I wish Thomas Brown got more shine on Hard Knocks. That was like my instant reaction. I was just like, damn, that guy would have been perfect for that show. Instead we got boring Eberflus getting haircuts and throwing parties in his backyard in his awesome house. I was like, boring. My initial thoughts were I couldn't have been more happy with the way that this had played out. From our discussions from last season, we all knew this was not the guy. And my biggest fear going into this season was, because I knew the talent that was on this roster, was we were going to go to the playoffs and the ineptitude of Eberflus was not going to be shown to light until we started losing like in very important playoff games year in and year out. Turns out he's worse than even we thought. And it worked out even better. Now we don't have to deal with that at all. And he's gone. And now we can reset fully with Caleb, who we now know is a guy and has been playing very well, especially under Thomas Brown. I mean, it sucks that this is the way the season went overall. Like losing 6 in a row is not fun when you have this type of talent on the team. And this is the silver lining for me. We got the bozo out.
Bozo is a perfect word, Frank. I know you really like to use the word bozo, so I need to get your instant raw reaction as well.
Yeah, it's funny because I was starting to mentally prepare for the next episode with him, in the vein of him still being here. And what we said last episode, or what I specifically said, was where I'm starting to grow frustrated with Ryan Poles is I hearken back to that interview where he was like, yeah, I think it was like RG3 had said something, and he's like, that kind of pisses me off because we're here to like buck that trend. We're here to like not worry about the past and rewrite the new history. And I said last week, I was like, Jack, rewriting new history would have been getting rid of this guy at the end of last year instead of, having that cycle of lame duck coach with quarterback, or firing him mid-year when you know that he's not your guy anymore. And I was going to come and double down on that take whenever we were going to record the full episode. But listen, to me, I said that to say my instant reaction is maybe something's a little bit different at Halas Hall these days. It has to be. I don't know if it's Poles. I don't know if it's Kevin Warren. I do not know if it's George just saying, you know what, he's finally had enough. Something's different, because this is the first time in the history of the Chicago Bears they've fired a coach mid-season. I know that doesn't mean a lot to the rest of the NFL because they're all modern franchises, but we're one now too, buddy. So that was my instant reaction. I agree with Nas. I'm beyond ecstatic. Hitler's dead, boys.
Oh, all right. Let's
I'll bleep that out.
Well, he's been dead, but yeah, the reincarnation of Hitler is definitely back to playing with his little bees. It's interesting that we're saying that the Bears are different, because even when they do things differently, they still manage to make it weird and just do weird things that everyone else is just questioning. You had the situation with Shane Waldron where everyone's like, all right, he's gone. Like, let's just get rid of him. They wait a day. It sounds like Eberflus was trying his best to figure out a way to keep him. Maybe that's why it took a little bit longer. But then the Bears this morning, the entire Bears media is like, all right, well, he's scheduled to do this press conference at 9 a.m., but nobody's sent the link out. Nobody's commented that it's happening. And then it was 9:01, and Matt Eberflus is sitting there by himself, acting like everything's fine, saying he's confident he'll be coaching on, in the game against San Francisco next week. And everybody's left like, well, what the hell was that? And then, 2 hours later, they say, nah, get the fuck out of here. Thanks for your service. Just so weird. But yeah, I mean, it at least it happened, right? Like, that's the biggest takeaway. This needed to happen. You have that press conference starting, and then you have Jaquan Brisker, who has just become a tweet god, apparently, while he's been out with this concussion. He's laughing at the fact that Eberflus is still around. And I do have to wonder, like, if that genuinely had any sort of impact. Like if Ryan Poles saw that tweet and was just like, all right, yeah, I think we got to do it. The Bears did release a statement that I do want to read from both Kevin Warren and Ryan Poles. The structure, I don't think we talked quite about that yet. Thomas Brown was elevated to interim head coach. We'll talk a little bit more about that decision. I want to get both of your thoughts on that. But this is from Ryan Poles, general manager of the Chicago Bears. He said, this morning after meeting with George and Kevin, we informed Matt of our decision to move in a different direction with the leadership of our football team and the head coaching position. I thank Matt for his hard work, professionalism, and dedication to our organization. We extend our gratitude for his commitment to the Chicago Bears and wish him and his family the best moving forward. And then Kevin Warren followed that up by saying, I support Ryan and the decision that was made this morning. We understand how imperative the head coaching role is for building and maintaining a championship caliber team, leading our players and our organization. Our fans have stood by us and persevered through every challenge, and they deserve better results. Our organizational and operational structure is strong, focused, aligned, and energized for the future. And again, Thomas Brown elevated to interim head coach. Where do both of you want to start? Do you want to talk about what Ryan Poles had to say, maybe Kevin Warren, or do you want to talk about just jump right into Thomas Brown and things that'll actually affect this team next week?
I mean, that feels like HR bullshit to me. Naz, do you feel any different?
I just feel like they're still being pussies, but that's, that's like,
well, hold on. Let's stick right there. Why do we feel that way?
I think this is a Kevin Warren play. I think if this same scenario is playing out last year, I don't think Poles pulls the trigger. I honestly don't think so. So I'm thankful that Kevin Warren is here. It's like having an adult in the room. And like, I'm obviously Poles has done things here in a way where it enabled us to get Caleb and get DJ, and there's, and like, you can say whatever you want about Tyreek this year. He played really well last year and things were really looking up. But he has not done a flawless job. And I think he needs a little bit of a lesson in leadership and what that looks like, and having an adult in the room that can maybe groom him to become better at this job, so we can have alignment and consistency and continuity over the years. That was kind of how I've been feeling. But Poles just not addressing the media over the last 2 months. And I get it. You want to leave that for the head coach, as the leader of your organization, but to just dodge it over and over again during all this controversy is pretty insane to me.
Yeah, to not talk, to deny a media request to talk after the Shane Waldron was let go. That's definitely disappointing. It's definitely gives that Ryan Pace feel where it was just like, where is this guy? Like, where is he during the season? Frank, do you agree with Naz that this feels more like a Kevin Warren decision, or at the very least he had some input and basically said, all right, Ryan, we can't keep going like this?
Yeah, it feels to me either what Naz painted is 100% true. I could also see there being a scenario in which Poles has, because some of the reporting has been that Poles' hands are a little bit tied because the McCaskies don't want to do this. And then in that scenario where he was ready to get rid of him, I don't know if it was the end of last year, at some point this year, having that second guy, to Naz's point, that's the point that I 100% agree with. There's an adult in the room now. So that's what makes me feel like this is different just generally. And that's sort of what I was alluding to earlier is, regardless of who it was, I agree that it's probably more Warren than anyone else. They've gotten through to George finally. This should now be run like, hopefully, a grown-up organization and not a nonprofit. This is $1 billion team in a multi-billion dollar league. Like, let's act like we're in the third biggest market in America. So I hope that's a sign to come. But I agree with Naz.
It feels like Kevin Warren maybe the decision necessarily wasn't his, but he, from the sound of, at least from the statement that he made where he said, I agree with, Ryan Poles and I support the decision. It sounds like Ryan went to him and was like, we need to do this. And then like what you're talking about, Frank, maybe Kevin Warren is more of like that bridge. George McCaskey trusts Kevin Warren as just a businessman and basically was like kind of like a Ted Phillips type role. And Kevin went to George and said, hey, look, this needs to happen from a business perspective. It needs to happen from a team perspective. So yeah, maybe there is that bridge finally built between, as it always should have been. It shouldn't be GM reporting to owner. That's just, no other team franchise does that. So it feels like maybe that structure is finally there. With that being said, the decision, like we mentioned, Thomas Brown to make him the interim head coach. Frank, you and I talked a little bit about that on the podcast last week. You can go back and check that out to get our thoughts initially. Let's start, Nas. Where are you at on Thomas Brown being the interim head coach? And then Frank, you can obviously jump in as well.
I think it was a natural decision. Players seem to really respond to him. And obviously he's very well spoken. Like, he's media savvy. You can kind of feel it. Like, guy has been groomed for it. And when the media likes you also, it's like having a backup quarterback. Everyone's going to be happy with this decision because everyone's been calling for it, because they like the way he handles himself and contorts himself. So I'm pretty okay about it. Like, I just want the offense to continue its momentum to finish the season. Maybe we can play spoiler for some teams down the stretch. And who knows? Like, maybe we get to 9 wins, and maybe for some dumb reason, because someone lost to someone, we get in for some weird reason, and that would be a lot of fun. We're not mathematically eliminated. I just want to continue the momentum with Caleb. That's all I'm thinking. Was this the best thing for Caleb? If the answer is yes, I'm good. Frankie, what do you think?
I'm right there with you. And I will even further that though, Nas, because again, in my preparation for the episode, I don't know if we're recording today, tomorrow, whatever it was going to be with the Thursday game, but it was going to, part of what I was thinking was Matt Eberflus had completely lost this locker room. You look at some of the things that were coming out the last couple of weeks, especially after yesterday on Thanksgiving, where DJ's like, I have no idea why he didn't call a timeout there. And Keenan Allen said something very similar.
He said the players did enough to win that game.
Yeah. And that's like, even going back, Jack, to what you said, like, he, maybe had to go to Jordan, like, that's not a hard sell, man. You have to salvage what you have this season. We're probably not a playoff team. And at this point, it is what it is, but you're going to lose the whole culture if you don't get rid of him. Like, again, I think to a degree, Eberflus helped build something, but they were out on him in particular. Like, you've got to let someone else garner this and massage some egos and do some things. And I think, to Nas's point, Thomas is the one to do that. That's in the building right now. Well, I mean, I don't think we'll discuss next year for quite some time, but yeah, this was to me. This to all of us has been a very easy choice for some weeks now. So I'm on board with it. And I'm right there with Nas. Going forward this year, unfortunately, and I don't mean this because I dislike Caleb. I love Caleb, but we had playoff aspirations. But as it stands right now, we're just worried about him, his development, this offense churning forward. And honestly, I'm not just the 1 week coach is fired bump, but I do wonder if that sort of aura that Caleb spoke about with Thomas Brown, does the defense get their juice back? Because they're not swarming to the ball like they were week 1, week 2, week 3. They're not creating turnovers and going for things like they were. And that was very clear to me, is because the voice in their ear being Matt Eberflus, he lost them. So if there's a little bit of juice, there should be some exciting football to move forward. And that's all we can ask for.
Something to consider, obviously the big conversation will be about how the offense continues any momentum that they may have, whether that's Thomas Brown, I assume he's going to be on the sidelines coaching plays. We'll have to see how that looks different. Obviously, he's been in the booth for the last 3 weeks. Something that shouldn't, this is also an audition for Eric Washington too, to call defensive plays. So maybe he has a different philosophy in terms of maybe he's going to be blitzing a little bit more. He's going to be putting pressure a little bit more often than Matt Eberflus was doing. The offense has definitely been improved with Thomas Brown. There's no doubt about that. A league high 22 third down conversions and have scored 46 second half points, which is the third most in the NFL since week 11. Like, that's some good stuff. Caleb Williams' numbers against the NFC North. He's 75 completions out of 117 attempts, 827 passing yards, 142 rushing yards, 5 passing touchdowns, 0 turnovers, which is just and all of that resulting also in 0 wins. All 3 of those games the last couple of weeks have been 1-score losses, which just adds up to the just obviously coaching issues and errors. And I think this team, where I'm going to be looking at the most of it is the accountability side, because I think we can all agree that the moment that Matt Eberflus said, not only did those 13 yards not matter, everyone was in position, took 0 accountability for that Hail Mary, that loss in Washington. I think that's when this thing just fell completely apart. Now, obviously, there were other issues, the hiring of Shane Waldron, the decision of him over Thomas Brown, who, Frank, in our last podcast, I mentioned him going from passing game coordinator to potentially interim head coach in 3 to 4 weeks would be just absolutely crazy. The fact that it's happened is just like, it's absolutely wild. And there were a lot of things that led up to this, but it is what it is. We have to move forward, kind of see what this team really looks like. Obviously, Naz, you mentioned the playoffs obviously we're not mathematically eliminated, but more than likely these are going to be probably some meaningless wins. So I want to ask both of you this. What will you both be looking for specifically, not necessarily about Caleb Williams, but Thomas Brown, his audition? What could potentially convince you that he deserves maybe more than an interview? Maybe he deserves the job. Is there anything he can do?
We're going to go with me first?
Yeah.
I think the best he can do is gain consideration for the job. That would be like the highest point he can reach. Even though the offense is playing better, I think there have been a lot of play calling errors even within that. The best thing he has done, more than anything scheme-wise, play calling-wise, is he has instilled confidence in Caleb. The interception record that he set yesterday for like most pass attempts without interceptions, it's remarkable, but there's a lot of luck that's played into that. Last 3 games,
he threw a couple.
Last 3 games, he has thrown interception-worthy balls, no question, which I want from him. I want him to take risks. It's what has allowed him to make some of those special plays and special throws. I'm down with it. And that's the biggest thing that Thomas Brown has done for me in terms of confidence level in him, is he's like kind of unleashed Caleb in a way. And I hope that continues. But I would never be like, oh, if he wins out, we should just keep him as head coach. There's still a lot of things, especially not for nothing, but these end of game drives, the play calling has not been perfect. We're at midfield yesterday, 2 minutes left, 2 timeouts. There should be no sense of urgency from that position, because you're 15 yards from field goal range. So that could be one play, and we have 2 minutes and 2 timeouts, and he's making Caleb sit back there and go for huge chunks. Completely unnecessary. The running game is still part of the playbook there, and he's made that error multiple times when he's felt pressure in a 2-minute drill, where the play calling that has served us well all game kind of gets thrown out the window, even though time management's not a huge issue yet. Now, did I know that we would only get 2 plays off in 1 full minute? That's also no, I didn't. But that's also on him. That should not be the case. And we never moved from midfield, and somehow that happened. It was nuts. What's your guys' take on Thomas?
No, I agree wholeheartedly with you. The way that I look at it is, even if he wins out and this offense continues to make those strides, he, to me, I think could only get to 3rd place if we're power ranking it. Ben Johnson, Mike Vrabel are my 2. I don't know if I've ordered them just yet. If he ends this thing strong, and it's not even necessarily always just about wins. He has no control over the defensive side. This is a little bit of a wacky. If they just have totally given up and are checked out, but we're scoring like 30 a game, he's done his job essentially, right? But So it's going to be a look thing for sure. Let's just say he finishes super strong. I think he can get to third on those power rankings, so you really know what you have. And honestly, that's what I want to happen, because there is a world in which Ben asks for crazy money. He's gonna get blank checks somewhere, and it may be here. Vrabel, I don't know if he's gonna get blank check, but we know what he brings, and he's gonna command that sort of authority that if things have really changed, he would probably be the guy, because they've shied away from strong personalities in the past, right? And granted, I think Thomas Brown is of that mold, maybe not as alpha as, I don't know if there are very many as Vrabel, but you guys get what I'm saying. So I'm right there where Nas is at. Like, he can certainly catapult himself, but I will never, ever, ever be in a world, and it has nothing to do with Thomas Brown. I already love the guy. But I will never be in a world where an interim coach could do anything outside of winning a Super Bowl to say, all right, you got to come back. Because you just can't, you have to go through the process with these other dudes. You just can't. I mean, we just saw what happened with Antonio Pierce. I think they did a couple of the interviews. They knew he was the guy. They weren't really going away from him. I don't want to be in that scenario. There's no way. He will be fired probably after next year.
There is definitely a strong concern, and I think from Bears fans, Nas, I know you share the sentiment as well. And I think I definitely talked about it last week on our podcast as well, that interim tag, you can, that midseason spark where you're like, okay, well, I want to see what this looks like, give him the full offseason. I want to see what he thinks about the draft. I want, and when you bring a guy into the building, he was out on the street, and Ryan Poles was like, well, we might as well bring him into the building and give him some sort of role. We really liked him, but not enough to hire him as offensive coordinator, which is, again, a conversation that will need to take place at some point. There is definitely that fear that it's like, okay, the defense is juiced up a little bit. The offense is still performing really well, but maybe he's still not quite ready to be a head coach. I really don't know how you don't go through the entire process in this offseason. You can't tell me that you think he's the head coach of the future when you didn't believe in him enough in the offseason to hire him as your offensive coordinator. Like that. And again, Naz, you brought up a great point. The offense has been playing much better, but that fucking bar was so low after what Shane was doing in these, after the bye week. They played really well. Caleb has been really good, but he's also still making a considerable amount of mistakes, missing throws that he should be making at this point. There should be that urgency. He should have more ownership, and I do want to see a little bit more of that moving forward. One thing I think maybe we could even end this reaction podcast here, because I do want to get some thoughts on this, something that's been touched on a little bit. I personally feel like Ryan Poles is safe at this point. I don't think there's a world that you allow him to make this decision mid-season. It sounds like Ryan Poles has the support of Kevin Warren. Do either of you feel any different? Do either of you think there's a chance that Ryan will not be given this offseason to hire his second head coach?
He would have been out today too. Like, we talked about this a little bit last week. The only way that he's gone is if he married himself to Eberflus and he had to be convinced or some sort of he would have been, if they waited to the end of the year or whatever, or even today in the meeting room, he's like, guys, do you really think we should? He'd have been gone. So, and this was him divorcing himself from that. This was him not doubling down. Well, I guess tripling down, because he doubled down in the offseason.
Right.
Yeah, I think he's safe. I mean, how many GMs pick an amazing quarterback and get a long ass leash? This would be, I cannot imagine drafting Caleb and then being out after a year. That would be crazy. Because Caleb has proven he's the real deal. And the person who picked him should keep his job for that alone. Not to mention the trade. Like the trade and the drafting of Caleb, I would imagine Poles is still the GM for the next 2+ seasons. That alone, it means he's got a job.
But do either of you wish that we had Bo Nix instead of Caleb Williams?
Count me out on that train.
Listen, you can get Caleb Williams Offensive Rookie of the Year on DraftKings for plus 4,000 right now. That's all I'm saying.
Hey, if I wanted a 30-year-old quarterback, I wouldn't have drafted one. All right, I would have just signed one.
I mean, Penix is probably the better of the 30-year-olds, if we're being honest.
He's got that grown man's body, He's got that grown man rifle. No, you know what? I think it's a nice sigh of relief, I think, for a lot of Bears fans, definitely us included, that the front office, ownership, they're seeing and hearing what Bears fans are seeing and saying. And the fact that it got to the point where you have just almost every national personality dunking on the Bears, and just that just terrible ending to that game on, again, national TV in the division. Matt Eberflus, he has nothing left to hang his hat on. His defense is bad. He cannot win close games. He cannot win in the division. Ryan Poles can't take the North if his head coach can't win games against those teams in the division. So it was a long time coming. Like you said, Naz, it is disappointing that this is where it ended up. I think we had all kind of said it. We were hoping we'd be wrong. We were hoping that this team would be playoff team, Super Bowl team, whatever it is with this guy at head coach, because that.
I mean, you look at the roster, it looks dummy proof.
Right.
It literally looks dummy proof.
And he found just every which way to prove that it's not, and just the way he lost these games. I mean, it had to happen. And
I mean, it was cowardice. He was playing for the field goal again yesterday. Yeah. He was playing for the field goal. On 3rd and 13, he said they drew the same thing. He ran with the same quarterback draw play that the two tackles didn't know what the snap count was on the play before. Or I didn't even know, 3rd and 20, so whatever it was. He was like, he's a fucking
20,
coward.
2nd and 20 that got sacked into 3rd and, I think, 26.
3rd and 26, he was going to have Caleb do the quarterback draw.
Because you have Braxton just whiffing, and then Larry Borum doing nothing.
Yeah. So, I mean, we were essentially going to, I mean, what was that going to be, a 49? I mean, it depends on how much Caleb gets, but what does he get there? 15, 10 yards? So we settle for another 40-yard field goal. 40-something yard field goal.
Honestly, I do think, as much as Thomas liked calling plays from the booth, being on the field allows you to rally dudes.
Oh, yeah.
Just, like that ability to maybe, I don't know, use the timeout you have left because you realize it's really loud in here and there could be a miscommunication on snap count. Like being on the field does have its advantages. So I do wonder if operations wise, we do get better just from Thomas being on the field instead of in the booth. Because I think they found their rhythm from a play calling perspective, but they got to clean up. What is with the Komet rub route pass interference shit?
Listen,
that felt like it's getting coached that way. I was just like, you can't do that. And they're getting called for it 3 times a game.
Yeah. Not only what the fuck is going on with it? Why does he think it shouldn't be a penalty? He looked at the ref the ref was crazy. I was like, dude, that's getting called. The refs fucked us yesterday, to make no mistake. They did not on that particular play. Komet, that was just an awful decision.
And then, of course, we see the Packers getting benefits of the calls, later on. That hurt a little bit. But anyways, look, this is Bears history right here that we're talking about. This has never happened. It's a very exciting time. I think it's a great opportunity for, like I said, Eric Washington, Thomas Brown, this entire team to show that they still care about what they're doing. Pay Keenan Allen, make him number 1, trade DJ Moore, all that good stuff that we've been talking about these last few weeks since the season started.
Keenan.
We've been on the Keenan boat. I think we were calling for the trade to happen, if I remember correctly, but it is what it is. Listen, by Monday, we should have a little bit more clarification on what the exact roles will be. We'll see if maybe somebody takes over play calling duties from Thomas Brown, to maybe if he wants to focus more on the sideline stuff. We'll see what that looks like on Monday when everyone's back in the building.
Can I push back on something Frank said earlier real quick?
Absolutely. Please do.
I disagree that Thomas Brown cannot have an impact on the defense.
Oh, no. I didn't say that he couldn't. I'm just saying, realistically, there is a chance that doesn't happen. The offense is what I'm looking at to evaluate him to move forward. That was my only point. But I agree, he can have an impact.
Maybe I'm looking at something. Maybe I'm not looking at it the same way. I think he can impact the way the defense plays by how he sets up this week's practice schedule. Because he can promote physicality. He can promote time. He can go to Eric Washington and say, our tackling's horrible. We need to go back to the basics this week. Scheme-wise, everybody knows what they're doing. Here's where we need to get better. He can instill a plan and a theme for the week and a philosophy that we play by. Like that's what a head coach does.
May I introduce you to a philosophy that he may introduce? Hustle, intensity, the ball, smart plays.
The ball. I think he took the hits.
Oh, that's a TikTok right there, baby. You set me up perfect for that one, Nazi Poo.
That's so good.
Would it bother either of you that if Thomas Brown doesn't call everyone and tell them to get their asses in the building tomorrow?
I mean, I don't know.
Are you giving them the weekend?
I think you got to. They just played
2
on
games in 4 days.
Yeah, that's tough. If he may lose the locker room if he does that. They may be out on him right away.
Get him in the film room. Let's go. Come on. Enough's enough. Professionals. You got DJ Moore bitching about not getting the ball every fucking time, and then he hits him right in the fucking chest. Oh, Tony Romo's. If Caleb
and that's the thing. But
in front of him,
I hate that. Like
Tony.
I hate that from. Yeah, I hate him. But I hate that from a technical standpoint. That's right. It could have been placed better. But you catch the fucking ball. Make a play for your quarterback. When is I feel like the last time that we had receivers consistently making plays for a Bears quarterback was Alshon Jeffrey and Brandon Marshall. We need that sometimes. Everything isn't a dime ball. Everything isn't right on the numbers. Fucking make a play.
I need a yak guy. I need a yak guy in this building. I need somebody who can fucking. It's not just one catch and falls down.
I need him to run across the goddamn field.
Yeah,
is what I actually need. But do we want to hear a target share?
Please,
quick, a target share.
Give us the target share now.
I mean, DJ got 16 targets yesterday, guys.
Good.
Like
he should. That's what he's getting paid for.
Yeah, and so the bitching better stop. Keenan got 8.
He needs to get more.
DeAndre, I would love DeAndre to get in like the 5 to 7 range. He only had 3 yesterday.
Same. We've been calling for that forever.
Komet had 3, but honestly, I think you guys know I don't really think that much of him. And with this skill group, I don't think much of him. And Rome got 6. I like that. I like that for him.
He needs a little bit more. He needs a bump.
I want more for him, but it's like there's only so many targets to go around.
Well, when you only get 2 first downs in the first half, that's something when we come back for the full podcast, and I do want to break the game down a little bit more in detail about our thoughts on obviously Caleb's performance, the usage of the wide receivers, some of the defensive guys as well. I do really want to break some of that stuff down. I do want to go into a little bit more about exactly what happened with the offensive line and just all of that. It needs to be discussed. It has to be about Thomas Brown specifically, that first half, because that can't happen. Like it's something that's obviously getting swept under the rug now that the head coach has been fired and the way that the game ended. But that first half, that can't happen, and that's under Thomas Brown. So something to discuss for sure.
It was a little annoying that a dome team was playing better cold weather football than us. Like, why are the Lions built the way we should be built when they're playing indoors every fucking week?
That's on the full pod. That's really what I want to dive into. That was that game was the difference between building your skill positions and building the trenches. Them boys.
I hope Kyle Shanahan's not listening to us on Monday, because we're going to expose this fucking Bears team. And if he listens to that, he'll have a game plan for victory, to be honest. I just can feel it.
Listen, if the Bears want to make the Shanahan thing a real possibility, they have to win. This is a must-win game.
Beat the dog shit out of him.
Beat the brakes off.
Yeah, but then if they do that, then maybe that's leaning towards keeping Thomas Brown. We need a middle ground here. We need...
No, I just need Caleb to make some splash plays, and then I need Purdy to look like a dumb fuck, and maybe Kyle will just leave on his own.
Yeah, that's true.
Maybe Caleb beats him so bad, throws 5 touchdowns, 500 yards, and Shanahan goes, maybe I want to be coaching that. Maybe I want to head over.
Okay, we need to discuss.
Can you imagine a Shanny Salah duo?
I wouldn't hate it. Rex Ryan wants back in. Are we saying no to Rexy?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. Listen, we've gone too long, but keep this in your minds, because the long episode I do want to discuss. We got 2 seconds. Would you all, don't answer now, would you all trade a first for Kyle Shanahan if he's done, but he's not going to retire or whatever? Like, first round pick straight up. Kyle's here. Don't answer now. Just sit on it. Sit on it. Let's talk about it.
Let's let's take the weekend. You know, let's take the weekend. Let's enjoy this Bears news. Finally, some good news for Bears fans. We can revel in this. Bears history has been made. Matt Eberflus out. Thomas Brown promoted for the second time in a month, which is, wish that would happen a little more often to me personally. But here we are. Thank you all so much for listening to the House of Halas Reaction Podcast. We'll be back for a full episode a little bit later next week, probably more than likely same time as always. Feel free to like and subscribe to our new YouTube channel. Everything else is the same. We talked a little bit about that on the original podcast or the first one. Feel free to comment. What was your favorite moment of the Matt Eberflus Chicago Bears? Was it Washington? Was
him
it
being fired?
Denver?
It was him being fired.
Was it him being fired? Was it the bees? Was it his beard? Feel free to let us know. Till then, we'll see you guys next week.
Later, Jackie. Later, Nas. Later, everybody.
See you, boys. Bye, Flus.